Okay, so it's been a week since the Worldwide Celebration officially got started, which means it's time for us to start thinking about what we can hopefully see for part 2 of the celebration. Now, for those who do not know what I'm talking about, I do have the timeline pulled up here for last year's Worldwide Celebration campaign. And typically what we will notice is that at the end of August, right, that is when the Part 1 LRs become released. So last year at the end of August, we had the releases of the Part 1 LRs with Vegito Blue and Corrupt Emerges Masu. This time at the end of August, right, this year, which was pretty much about a week ago, maybe a bit longer, we did have the releases for our Part 1 LRs with Carnival LR Broly and the Dokkan Festival LR Goku, Gohan, and Trunks. Now, typically with the Worldwide Celebration, it starts at the end of August and goes through the entire month of September, right? But what we notice is that as we go through September, by the middle of the month, that is when the Part 2 releases take place, right? So at the 15th of September last year, we had the Part 2 releases with Future Gohan and Sword of Hope Trunks. So all of this is pretty much basically trying to say that we do not have that much time left before the second part of the celebration takes place. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be trying to predict ideas for Part 2, including the new LRs, the new upcoming EZAs potentially, and hey, maybe even some super EZAs as well. So we definitely have a lot of things to talk about in the video. But first things first, I do just want to go ahead and talk about something that we all are kind of thinking, which is what is happening with Part 1 of the celebration, right? Because when it comes to the celebration so far, it has been like a hit or miss. I think your boy Mike, I'll leave a link to his channel, but he did make a post on Twitter talking about how you move 2 steps forward in the celebration and then you take 1 step back because there are good things about the celebration and then there are bad things. One good thing, for example, is that both of the LRs, right, the premier LRs, Dokkan Festival, Goku, Gohan, and Trunks, and the Carnival LR Broly, both of them are outstanding compared to last year, right? Corrupt Emerges Masu was really good, and Vegito Blue was very underwhelming, and he was a premier LR for Part 1 of the celebration, but people were very disappointed with how he was performing. So, compared to this time around, Dokkan got their stuff together, they got their act together, and made sure that the 2 premier new release LRs are really doing their performances really well. However, when we talk about a good thing, we also have to talk about a bad thing, and one bad thing is the lack of units, and particularly the types of units who aren't getting good options, right? So let me explain what I mean, right? Obviously, we have the 2 LRs right here for the main kind of releases of Part 1. Also, we have the Saiban or Piccolo who exchanges into Vegeta, so that was something we expected anyways. Also, we have the free-to-play Paragus. Now, this is a unit they added to the game because of the whole celebration. He is a solid unit, but he is still a free-to-play nonetheless type of unit, so nothing too crazy in terms of stats and everything like that, right? But also, we had 2 EZAs. One right here with Team Turles, who technically shouldn't even count because he was before the celebration actually got started. And then the other actual EZA for the celebration, which is Int Broly. Now, if you guys have not heard anything about Int Broly, just type Int Broly EZA in the search bar for YouTube, and you will see a bunch of videos, hey, even maybe my own, actually, talking about like the reactions to Int Broly and his EZA and all that sort of stuff, and the breakdowns and the performances and all the reviews. But Int Broly's EZA is very underwhelming for a lot of reasons. For one, this guy is a Saiyan Dokkan Festival TUR, so the expectations were through the roof, especially because the theme of this year's celebration is Broly. So there was a lot of hype going into this man's EZA, but not only did they include a bunch of restrictions to kind of limit the opportunities for Broly's max potential to be realized, they also left a lot on the table, it feels like they could have given Broly more. They gave Broly some nice things, some more damage reduction, some more additionals, the ability to greatly raise his attack, but also they didn't really give him enough, it feels like. So in that grand scheme of things, that is one serious problem, right? The fact of the matter is we do not have that many units coming to the game, especially in terms of EZAs, and the ones we do have, like Broly for example, not exactly that great. Broly's EZA is not really so great that everyone's like, okay, well, we only got 1 EZA, but they knocked it out of the park. No, that's not the case. We only got 1 EZA, so in terms of what we could have gotten, people are already asking, where are the other EZAs? Aside from that, the 1 EZA we did get with Broly, not even that great in terms of what we were hoping for. So all in all, things are kind of just falling into a bad position for Dokkan as far as the Part 1 of the celebration is concerned. I think it's still pretty good, and I think a lot of people in the grand scheme of things will look at Part 1 and think, it's not that bad. But what the fact of the matter is, there aren't that many units, there aren't that many EZAs that have occurred. So right now, Dokkan is setting itself up in a precarious kind of position because if they don't perform well with Part 2, then what can happen is this celebration could be looked on very negatively as a whole. So they pretty much need to knock it out of the park with Part 2 as far as the new LRs, the EZAs, and Super EZAs that they may consider doing. So there's a lot of pressure on Dokkan to make sure Part 2 really goes crazy, considering part 1 is kind of like a hit or miss for a lot of people. Anyways, though, since we already kind of talked about part 1 and the problems, I guess, if you will, for part 1 as a kind of celebration so far, let's go now and talk about the main LR predictions, right? So I did say earlier that the whole kind of theme of the celebration is Broly theme, right? That's what they mentioned in their Dokkan Now special a couple weeks ago now. But they did mention the whole celebration was focused around the Broly theme. So part 1 was focused on the first Broly movie. That means for us that part 2 is probably going to be the Broly Second Coming movie, or at least that is my prediction and or hope. I've heard some people say, hey, maybe we can get a Bio Broly LR and stuff, and I think that would be kind of hilarious. But at the same time, in terms of like Dokkan trying to get revenue, in terms of the hype of the celebration, I really don't think it makes sense, and I think anyone who says it does is kind of pushing agendas or trying to make a reach, because I get Bio Broly is a part of the celebration theme. It's still a Broly technically. Some people do like the movie, so I'm not going to fault that, but I don't think Bio Broly is hype enough to really warrant being a part 2 LR. Maybe some sort of other Dokkan Festival unit for sure, but I don't think part 2 of the Worldwide Celebration campaign works for a Bio Broly in that sort of movie. But maybe, who knows, maybe I think incorrectly, maybe Dokkan will agree with the Bio Broly fans, so maybe we will see Bio Broly for an LR. But for me personally, because I do think part 2 is going to be focused around Broly Second Coming, I do think one potential LR we're going to get is another variant of this Super Saiyan Broly right here, who does happen to transform into the legendary Super Saiyan, obviously kind of centered around the second Broly movie, right? So that is my expectation. Obviously, the one Carnival LR we have right here is a base form Broly who does transform into the legendary Super Saiyan form. That was something Dokkan did to kind of allow for links to work better between all the Brolys. I think in that sort of sense, if they want to maintain that focus, part 2 should have another kind of Super Saiyan Broly, so that way the link still mess up with this Broly and the other Super Saiyan Broly we may potentially see, and then obviously if they transform into the legendary Super Saiyan, the links will still work. So I think legendary Super Saiyan Broly, a Super Saiyan Broly kind of variant, is the obvious kind of pick when it comes to one of the 2 LRs for part 2. Now me personally, because they did do a Carnival LR for Broly right here, I really hope that they do a Dokkan Festival LR for the part 2 Broly. I really hope that's the case, because I really don't like the idea of Broly being a Carnival LR both times. I'd rather they kind of flip-flop it. So obviously part 1, we had the bad guy in Broly being the Carnival LR, and the good guys with Goku, Gohan, and Trunks being the Dokkan Festival LR. I hope part 2, they flip-flop that, so basically the good guys will be the Carnival LR, and the bad guy, in which case Broly, will be the Dokkan Festival LR. So one prediction right there, definitely the Super Saiyan Broly. We'll have to see what typing he could be. Maybe he could be physical, or probably not physical, but probably like STR or something. But we'll have to see exactly what they do for him, right? But I do think he is one prediction that we can probably see. The other side, though, as far as movie heroes, that is where things can be kind of interesting in terms of how you choose to see it. Because, you know, if we're sticking with the whole Broly Second Coming kind of focus and theme, the thing is, you can do certain variations, right? So one obvious kind of variation is we could do something similar to this kind of unit right here with the Go Bros, right? So we could have another Gohan and Goten duo kind of unit. I don't think this is necessarily something they should do, because they've already done this type of unit before, and they just easy-ate this unit last year. So I really don't think this is the type of unit that they should try to design. They could go ahead and do a standalone Gohan. Gohan was obviously the kind of main hero, really, of the whole kind of second movie, even though technically it was the whole Goku family that ended off the fight with Broly. Gohan was kind of leading that fight in a lot of cases, right? So you could do a standalone LR Gohan and then have him do a standby or some sort of active to get into the family Kamehameha kind of position. Another idea I think could be quite radical potentially is just make a whole kind of 3-unit setup here. Obviously, we did have one Broly right here, and then 3 units right here with the Goku, Gohan, and Trunks. Maybe they could do that again, this time with Gohan, Goten, and then Goku in the back. But technically, I don't think that makes perfect sense, because Goku obviously did not show up other than for that family Kamehameha moment. So I don't think it makes the perfect sense in terms of doing it like that. If anything, I think my main expectation is that they're going to be doing another Gohan. So I mean, that's probably the best guess I have. Another, I guess, idea, now that I think about it, is they could kind of go with something different. So they could do, and this is a really crazy idea, they could do a Goten, Trunks, and Videl. I don't think we have a trio unit of those 3, but obviously Videl was a part of the Second Coming movie right here as well. Goten and Trunks were fighting with Broly first before Gohan got involved. So what we could see is these 3 have like a trio unit, which would be kind of a miss, I would say, in some cases in terms of hype, but they could work it out maybe. But they could start off with a Videl Goten and Trunks trio who stand by into Gohan, who then transforms into like Gohan and Goten and stuff, and they do the family Kamehameha or something. We'll have to see what they do, of course, but I do think those are really actually some ideas for the Part 2 LR as far as like the other side of the Broly Second Coming movie is concerned, because yeah, I mean, realistically, there are only so many characters who are involved in that movie who you could argue should be LRs, and I mean, having to try to pick variants between them, I think Go Bros is like the obvious kind of go-to, but that's already been done, so I don't expect them to do that flat out once again this time around. So those are kind of my predictions right there. Obviously, another kind of Gohan LR maybe for the Part 2, along with, of course, another Super Saiyan Broly for Part 2 of the celebration, which is likely, in my opinion, going to be focused around Broly's Second Coming. Now, when we talk about potential EZAs, obviously we have to assume those are going to be centered around Broly's Second Coming. Reason being, we had Part 1 of the celebration focused around the first Broly movie, and the only EZA of the celebration was the legendary Super Saiyan Broly right here, who is himself focused on the first movie. So, I mean, by that logic, the second part of the celebration focused around Broly's Second Coming, we do kind of want the EZAs to also kind of follow suit in terms of staying related to that specific sub-focus, if you will. Now, based on that reasoning, there are a couple EZAs that we could potentially see. I think the most obvious one that a lot of people are hoping for, and I did pull him up here, is this Tech LR Broly right here. Now, Tech LR Broly, as you see, he came out in 2019. He is, in fact, the oldest unit in the game to not have an EZA. So, I mean, the stars have literally aligned for this guy to get his EZA. The whole theme is centered around Broly. Obviously, we did get an EZA for the Dokkan Festival TUR right here. Perfect opportunity for them to do another EZA for another Broly, this time the Tech LR. So, I think this is an obvious kind of pick. I don't think anyone is going to say, wow, Sky, you are really thinking outside the box with this one. Because, I mean, realistically, everyone is hoping that he will get his EZA. Obviously, leading Resurrected Warriors will be a nice kind of boost right there for that category. And then, hey, I mean, if they make him really good, that would be fantastic. Because I really, really want to see this Broly become a good unit. And obviously, the only way for him to do that right now is to get an EZA. So, I do expect him to be one potential option. I mean, there are other options as well, I would say, but I think a lot of them fall into movie heroes, right? So one option, and this is maybe a weird choice, but one option could be this AGL free-to-play Trunks. I think this free-to-play Trunks, yeah, he should be free-to-play. He could be a nice option for an EZA. Obviously, he is not that old of a unit, but he maybe could get another kind of EZA or something because he is still like 2 years old, sort of. So I think he could get an EZA. I think it would be a nice opportunity. Obviously, he does fit into Broly's Second Coming, so that's kind of like an obvious pick there. Another kind of option in the same kind of free-to-play sense is the physical Super Saiyan Goten right here with the Dragon Balls. So came out around the same time as in fact, came out at the same time as the other free-to-play Trunks. He could also get his own kind of EZA, and I think it would be perfectly justified. But also, I could probably see them not do this because they just want to save this for a bit later in the future. I could see that. But I think this is, again, like the stars are aligning just like it was for Broly. I think the stars are kind of setting themselves up to allow Goten and Trunks to get their EZAs. So we'll have to see what they're going to do. But I think everything is kind of setting up for those guys to have a possibility of EZAing. Also, we did bring her up, but STR Videl, she could be another unit to EZA. She came out a while ago herself, so she is definitely due for an EZA. She would be like a side banner unit or something like something along those lines. Actually, I don't even think she's side banner. In fact, I believe she is a free-to-play. Yeah, she's a free-to-play farmable unit, but still, she is an older unit nonetheless, so she could get an EZA, and it would be perfectly justified, I think, for her to get an EZA, just to kind of fall around that theme. Now, the last one I want to talk about, this is like the main kind of EZA, aside from the Tech LR Broly, that I really do think this unit should get an EZA, is this physical Super Saiyan Gohan. He looks like Super Saiyan 2 to me. I'm not gonna lie, he looks like Super Saiyan 2, but he is in fact a Super Saiyan, and he is definitely an old unit. In fact, when we look at him in terms of SSR, right, he is just a summonable SSR, right? He's not like a free-to-play farmable unit, so I do think he is due for an EZA. Obviously, he's a very old unit. He could be a fantastic kind of boost for movie heroes and stuff like that in other categories like Earthbred Fighter, Siblings Bond, Defenders of Justice. He could be a great boost for all of those categories, provided that he gets an EZA. If he doesn't get an EZA, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I do not plan to ever use this unit again until he gets an EZA because he's just so old. He doesn't really have much to offer. I mean, when we look at his passive, right, the whole support here is actually pretty good. It's just that he himself is not strong. So if they were to boost his other parts of his passive, right, then then this will be a different story. Then Gohan could be a very nice, very powerful unit. But I think those are some options for easy A's. Obviously, a lot of them do kind of fall into the whole kind of movie hero side of things, even though this is a Broly-related kind of celebration. But to be fair, there were more heroes involved in those movies than villains, right? Because the main villain was Broly through and through. I mean, so I really think it's... I don't think there's anything crazy to kind of expect in that sort of sense. But obviously, we talked about easy A's. We also do need to talk about, I guess, the elephant in the room, which is super easy A's. Now, to be fair, Dokkan hasn't put out a Super Easy A for 2 months now. I believe the last one they did was in June, because July, at least for JP, we were doing the Tanabata celebration, so we did not get a Super Easy A for that part of the month. And also last August, we did not get, or last August being last month, right? We didn't get a Super Easy A on either side of the game as well. So we are kind of waiting for another one to come into the game, and I think this is actually a great chance for them to do exactly that, because there are a couple units that kind of fit into this mold. I think the least of which is this LR right here, LR STR Broly. I think the first ever summonable LR, unless I'm mistaken. And I mean, he did get his Easy A, right? But his Easy A is actually 3 years old. So I think he is a great kind of a choice for a Super Easy A. In fact, I think he's one of the few kind of choices for a Super Easy A in that sense. But I think it'll be a perfect kind of focus. Obviously, if Broly is the theme of the celebration, give this Broly a Super Easy A, because he does fit the whole kind of second coming focus. I think it'd be a great opportunity for him to get cooking. So yeah, I think that's like one of the main options. There are some other options, I suppose, but obviously none of them would really kind of fit this whole kind of Broly focus, I guess, except for this one right here, which is the STR Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. But this Broly is more so focused on the first kind of movie, and obviously, we're kind of coming to the end of part 1 of the celebration, so I don't necessarily know for certain if they will come back to this Broly and give him a Super Easy A. They should, because he is so old, even his Easy A is old. But, I mean, it's hard to say for certain if they will do this. I mean, if not the LR Broly, I would definitely hope that they give this STR Broly his Easy A, because he, of course, is an AoE unit. If he could do a bunch of work, we could see the resurgence of Broly in the World Tournament meta. And if you know the Broly meta, then you know. But I mean, we could see Broly become a very fun unit if he gets a Super Easy A, and I think he is definitely due for one. So we'll have to see if they decide to kind of break the boundaries of the timeline of the celebration and decide to do an Easy A for this first movie, Legendary Super Saiyan Broly, during part 2 of the celebration, which is focused on the second Broly movie. So there are some things like that to kind of consider. Also, I guess, I mean, not this Bio Broly. I mean, I was looking at Bio Broly because I got sidetracked there. I was thinking about Bio Broly still. I mean, as a quick kind of aside, I mean, another kind of a Super Easy A that I wouldn't mind them doing is a Super Easy A for Int Broly. Now, I know his Easy A just came out like 2 days ago, but, or not 2 days ago, actually, I guess like 5 days ago or 4 days ago. But still, like, I wouldn't mind him getting a Super Easy A. Just as a quick joke, I want to say, I mean, I wouldn't mind him getting a Super Easy A because he needs more. He needs more. But okay, I mean, just a quick side joke there. I mean, probably not that funny, but still a bit of a joke there, trying to get Int Broly his Super Easy A and hopefully become an actually good unit. Other than that, I mean, in terms of Super Easy A's, there aren't really that many other options. I mean, obviously this is a Broly-focused celebration, so the idea should be to give Broly the love. But also, I mean, in terms of Super Easy A's, there aren't that many in terms of the hero side other than these 3 units right here. Goku, Goten, and if I can find him here, where is he? Gohan. Obviously, these 3 are very old Easy A's, but also all 3 of them focus on the family Kamehameha, so if we're trying to argue the whole kind of concept of Super Easy A's and everything like that, and trying to kind of tie Super Easy A's to the whole focus of the theme and everything, I mean, these 3 are perfect opportunities for exactly that, because they're old Easy A's, they're obviously on the hero side of the game, and, I mean, say what you will, like, Broly is a very dope unit, but Dokkan and the story of Dragon Ball, they love their heroes. So Goku, Gohan, and even Goten, I mean, yeah, we could see Easy A's, or actually I should say Super Easy A's for them, because they all are very old with their Easy A's and everything. I think it's kind of an obvious kind of choice as well, maybe not as obvious as, like, Tech L or Broly getting an Easy A or other things like that, right? But I think these guys have a great opportunity to get a Super Easy A, and I think it will be a mistake for Dokkan not to put out a Super Easy A during part 2 of the celebration, because again, you know, we talked about the Easy A's, the new LRs and stuff. Part 2 needs to cook, because part 1 so far has not been cooking to the level of expectation that we were all hoping. Yes, it's done some good things, but it hasn't done quite enough compared to what we wanted to see. So if they really want to knock our socks off, if they really want to, like, blow our breath away, then they really need to take part 2 seriously, I guess, and really knock it out of the park in terms of new LRs and new units, new EZAs, new Super EZAs. They need to go crazy with all of it, and not only do they need to put out a lot, they need to make sure they are really good, because, I mean, we got the Int Broly EZA, we were all hoping for it, but just because we got the EZA doesn't mean it's good enough to be happy about in the grand scheme of things. So, not only do we need a lot of EZAs and everything, we also need really good units, right? So hopefully they can kind of focus on how they designed Carnival LR Broly and the Goku, Gohan, and Trunks unit right here, as opposed to trying to kind of copy and design every unit to focus in the same kind of design as Int Broly's EZA right here. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what they're officially going to do. But yeah, I think those are kind of like the obvious kind of picks. I guess real quick before I end the video, I do just kind of want to talk about Bio Broly, because I did talk about it as a potential, and then I kind of just threw it into the garbage there. But giving Bio Broly some respect, right? I think when it comes to new units, it will be kind of interesting what they would do. Obviously, one would have to be an LR Bio Broly, which would be kind of insane. Another one, I guess, would be an LR Goten, Trunks, and Krillin, because obviously those were the kind of like main focused units of the Bio Broly movie, right? Goten, Trunks, and Krillin. So they could do those two for LRs, I guess, but that would be, again, I think that would be a very bad move. But, I mean, if they're trying to do Bio Broly, I mean, I think that's an opportunity for them to do those types of units. Also, in terms of EZAs, I would say there are like 3 units that really have opportunities for EZAs. One is on the Broly side of things. One is this Bio Broly, right? So I did kind of look at him earlier for a sec. This Bio Broly is a very old unit. He hasn't been touched in almost 7 years, I think. In fact, I think it has been 7 years since he's been out. So he is very due for an EZA. But, I mean, in that sort of sense, he could get an EZA. I think it's a great opportunity if they decide to ever go into the Bio Broly direction. Will they do it? I don't know. But if they do decide to do Bio Broly, this is one of those opportunities right there. Also, aside from that, I mean, if we talk about movie heroes, right? Because this is where I think some of the better choices come for EZAs. One is this, where can I find him? There it is. The Krillin right there with the red shirt, of course, looking drippy as always. Krillin right here, the side banner unit to the Goten and Trunks Dokkan Festival unit. So he can be a potentially good EZA if they do the whole kind of Bio Broly focus. Again, I really don't think they should, but, you know, he does have damage reduction and whatnot when there's a movie boss's opponent. He is able to boost his own damage reduction with other Trunks or Kid Goten allies, so, I mean, that's something that can be really nice if they update that, so we'll see if they decide to ever kind of go in this direction, especially during the whole kind of Broly celebration as a whole. And also, I guess one other kind of a unit that is obvious to talk about is this Goten and Trunks. They are an old unit, over 3 years old since they've been out. They are definitely due for an EZA. I wouldn't say they are due for an EZA as much as Tech LR Broly, but they are due for one themselves, and they actually have a lot of potential if they get their EZAs, because obviously they boost their chance of dodging with each attack evaded and stuff like that, so they have some nice things and quirky things in their kit, maybe, if you want to call it that. I think, in that sort of sense, if they go with Bio Broly, this is like the obvious go-to EZA. Like, everyone's going to be saying, okay, well, you're going Bio Broly, where's the EZA for these guys? Obviously, one of the few leads for Kamehameha, so, I mean, that would be a nice opportunity for Kamehameha as a category to get a bit of a glow up as well. We'll have to see what they're going to do, but yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for both sides, like Bio Broly and, you know, Broly Second Coming. I think definitely there's more opportunities on the Broly Second Coming side of things, but, you know, I mean, not to detract on Bio Broly too much, there are some EZAs and some new types of units they could kind of include. I just think realistically, all of the eyes are pointing to Broly Second Coming as the expected kind of Part 2 focus for the celebration, and I think it makes perfect sense in terms of new LR potentials, new EZAs and Super EZAs and all that sort of stuff. In any case, that's going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button down below. Also, please subscribe so you can support the channel and the content that I do. And definitely comment down below, what are you hoping to see for part 2 of the celebration? And if you wish to share, how have you been liking part 1 of the celebration so far? Has it been really enjoyable to your liking, or has it been lackluster, or anything in between? Let me know your feelings on part 1 as well in the comments down below. And definitely check out some of the other vids I have on my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.